everyone. Sorry, I feel like an active alcoholic with my late arrival, but hope I am not. I am sober today. So, thanks Mike for pitching in, and it makes sense. I'm the more suspect party here. So, um, anyways, yeah. So my sobriety date is January 16th, 1998. So I have been here a little while, and I got to go camping this weekend, and ironically, I was rolling. I live conveniently close by, and I was coming back, and I was like, "Wow, I wonder if I'm home in time to finally get to that Saturday night meeting." When I drove by, apparently being late. So turns out I did get home in time to come to that Saturday night meeting. Anyway, like I said, I got sober in '98. Before that, I was drinking, and I also, it was the '90s, so there were drugs involved in my story, but mostly I'm, a good old fashioned alcoholic from a good old fashioned alcoholic family. And I come by drinking naturally. I don't know if it's learned or inherited, because I've got it everywhere. But in any case, I'm an alcoholic, and life got a lot better when I finally I heard Mike mention the word surrender, and it, the path that the path that my drinking took me on, and of course I'm sure, pretty common as an alcoholic, not thinking that I'm an alcoholic, not knowing what Alcoholics Anonymous is, but intuitively knowing that I didn't want to come here. Like, it's like almost like an alcoholic knowing. And I remember at some point along the way, I heard that if you're in AA, that means you can never drink again. And I distinctly remember thinking, that is the saddest thing I've ever heard. I think when I heard that, made the decision that I would, be very careful about how much I drank, because I didn't want that sad fate to become my future. But as you can see, I did a really good job controlling my drinking. And my life became unmanageable, and things got really, I'm naturally not I'm not naturally a depressive person. I've not suffered from like depression or, anxiety, plenty of fear and insecurity, but not like the genuine, depression that some people have. And over my years of drinking, I started sort of, the feeling some of those, like waking up again with those same feelings, or, oh, I did that again, or waking up, hungover and saying, I'm never going to drink again. I can't believe whatever it was I did last night. That's it, really the conviction. And then a little bit later in the day, I started, I was still relatively young. I could kind of shake it off. And then I would start feeling a little better. And then I would think, you know what? I've changed my mind. And actually, I think it's a good idea that I should drink because of X, Y, or Z, which is why I never thought that I had lost the control of drinking, because I always made the decision that I had changed my mind. And so, so I guess I'm nervous because I'm late, but I kind of bypassed the story part. But if anybody wants me to go into that later, I can tell you. I can, trust me, I'm qualified. And then it was the 90s, and part of what was happening was I was in Olympia, and overnight, like 30 of my closest friends became heroin addicts, right? So so compared to them, I really had it kind of together, was the other thing. So I could, for a long time, like I was picking up after like my stupid junkie boyfriend, or I was like the one still going to work, or I was the one still paying the rent, because, so compared to them, I thought I didn't have a problem. They all had the problem. And then one of them got sober and had to, one of them, I don't know, hit bottom and got sober and started working the steps. And in the course of working the steps, this guy, an ex-boyfriend, actually came and made an amends to me. And I don't remember that so much, but I do remember that I realized that he was profoundly different. I think I was complaining about something one day and he said, "Oh, Donna, what can I do to help?" And I was like, that's not the guy that I knew before. Like, and so I knew something had changed and I kind of had my eye on him. And just saw how he was living his life a little bit differently. So, um, I finally got at one point, I guess I was getting close to the end of my drinking and I knew this guy was sober. And so I asked him, like, can you tell me a little bit about this, Alcoholics Anonymous thing? Actually, it's not quite that simple. There was another friend that was a hardcore heroin addict and drug dealer, good friend. And had gotten sober and I borrowed his car to go pick up some drugs so that I could sell them. I sold pounds of mushrooms. And so I needed a big car. And I went to borrow this guy's car and he was like, sure, anything you need. But what are you doing? And I was like, listen, Damien, you don't want to know. And he was like, no, seriously, what are you doing? And I'm like, forget about it. You owe me. Just give me the keys. And you don't want to know. And so my approach with him did not work. And I got a talking to about, actually, you know what? That's not exactly true. I was sober. Oh my God, it's all coming back to me. I had asked, okay, so that's later in the story. Earlier in the story, I asked this other ex-boyfriend to help me do the steps. And I remember he, told me, listen, if you get a real sponsor, if you decide to do this and I cannot be your sponsor. Like he was very clear about that, but he was willing to read the book with me once and take me to a meeting. So, and that was what I kind of needed because I was pretty like, I don't know, freaked out about this place. So this guy did this with me, and then he took me to Drunks R Us. Actually, I was so desperate. I asked his friend to take me on a Sunday, and I went to buy the book, and then that was the first meeting I went to with Shelley. And then, but I hated Shelley. So then on Monday, I went to another meeting with Ryan. And Ryan said, it was a big meeting. And Ryan said, that woman would be a good sponsor, or that woman, or that woman. He pointed out 3 women in this huge room. And I listened to them. And one of them, who turned out to be Erin, spoke, and she said something, and her voice cracked. And I knew she was telling the truth. And so I have no idea what she said, but I believed her. So I asked her to sponsor me. And that woman became my first sponsor. And her instructions were, hey, are you willing to do what I have done to get sober? Are you willing to give this away? And what's the third trick question? There's the third. I can't even remember. Are you willing to? I don't know. Willing to do what people ask you to do in AA or something. So I said yes, yes, yes. And then I said, but I'll tell you, I'm not sure. She said, are you willing to do what I say? And I said, yeah, but I never do anything. I never finish anything. And it was being really honest. I was like, I've never actually done anything. So to be honest, I don't know. And she said, you know what, let's just see how it goes. Let's just start this thing. And so I started working with this woman, and it was really like baby steps. And she was an elementary school teacher, which was perfect for me because I was like an immature child. And she would bring like candy and shrinky dinks in her bag and go to district meetings. And I would go, I was told, this is your home group now. And I was like, oh, there's too many people I know from the past. I'm too cool to go to that meeting. And she's like, this is your home group. And then we started going to the district meetings in the all, doing everything because she was active in service. And slowly, I mean, I remember, actually, so there's somewhere, because I accidentally told that part of the story, I forgot, where there's some point in early sobriety, first couple months, where I am still dealing drugs as a living, because, I still needed to earn a living or extra money. So that whole thing that I just told you about Damien, I borrowed this guy's car. I was sober. He was sober. He was more sober than me because he wasn't selling drugs anymore. And but I wasn't doing them. So that was my justification. I was just selling them. So anyway, Damien sort of explained to me that that's not something we do in sobriety, and I was embarrassed into retiring from that earlier career. And so anyway, so I don't know why that popped into my head, but it did. And anyway, so I guess I must have mentioned that to my sponsor along the way, and we just kept working the steps, and I remember how hard it was. I remember how it was really hard to sit still. I remember how, as I was getting sober, I distinctly remember my old way of thinking and seeing the world, and my old way of dealing with things was like right there, of course, because I'm still me. And then my new brain that I felt like I was like in a petri dish in my brain in Alcoholics Anonymous was there. And because they were both like equally strong for a period, it was incredibly uncomfortable. And I couldn't quite relax. I remember my only like thing I could do. I mean, I would meet with my sponsor every week, and I would always feel like pretty good after doing that work. And I would go to meetings and stuff, but throughout the week, things would get emotionally uncomfortable, and I would take a lot of baths. I lived in a rat infested warehouse on Airport Way with my motorcycle, because when I got sober, I thought that was about as cool as life could be. And I had just this room, and I had a clawfoot tub in there. So people would call me. I remember my friends would come in and they'd hear like the tinkling of my arm. They'd be like, "Are you in the tub again?" Because that was the only thing that I could do to kind of like settle down. So early sobriety was uncomfortable, but I was learning, different ways of being and thinking, and my brain was sort of, we talk about right size. I remember there was this guy that was in my home group that always wanted to hug me, and I hated it. And I didn't. I mean, he hugged everyone, but I didn't want to hug him, and I didn't know how to. So this is like the pre-sober Donna. I had this friend that I made friends with, and I don't know what this poor guy had been through, but he had like face tats, and he was really quiet and a little bit scary, and that's why I liked him. And his name was Gary. And I asked my sponsor, "Can I get Gary to kick this guy's ass, because I don't want to hug him?" And she was like, "No, but you can ask the guy, you can tell the guy that you'd rather not be hugged." And I was like, what? Like, tell him? And she made me, and I was like, "But what would I say? And how would I say this?" And all this. And it was this big, like, ordeal. And I went through it with her advice, and I told this guy, and he was like, "Oh, of course." Like, and it immediately was solved. And then weirdly, get this, like a short time later, I don't know how long, it wasn't very long, maybe a couple months, maybe not, I don't know, time was weird back then. Guess what? I decided he was okay to hug. So it was like this whole, so that's how difficult all of life was for me before sobriety. I just didn't know, people, I think I must have heard that here. I felt like I had been born without some like instruction manual that everyone else had been given. And so Alcoholics Anonymous was sort of, has been my only and my best working instruction manual since that time. And that woman really had to, I'm thinking about up here today, the silly things that I had to ask her. I also really remember her telling me to do something. I don't, this was probably before the hug incident. And she said, you got, you should do blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, but I don't want to. And she said, oh, well, that's okay. You cannot want to do something and do it anyway. And that was like, had never occurred to me. What? You can do something you don't want to do? Like, I really was like, what, floored with that one. And so I did whatever it was she suggested. And I remember being like, I can't, really early sobriety, being like, this is happening and my car is broken and I'm going to lose my job, drama. Like, I'm going to lose my job because this car is broken and I can't, or my motorcycle's broken and the battery, I don't have money for a battery and I can't get to work and blah, 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 blah. And she'd say, go talk to the new, or find someone newer than you and go talk to them after the meeting. And I would say, how is that going to help I can't get to work? And she'd say, just do it. And I can't remember how it actually worked, but I know that I talked to the newer person. I know that I didn't lose my job, and I know that I'm still sober today. So like, I don't remember exactly what magical thing happened, but really just like AA has always really just been the solution I've always found in these rooms. And then years later, or whatever, a period of time later, had worked with my sponsor, and I had worked with a sponsee. I had worked with a few, but I worked with one in particular that stuck around long enough to actually do the steps. And then, I don't know what happened, but like things were less, I was feeling less connected. And I kind of grew apart from that sponsor. And then, but she had connected me to service, and I keep looking at, anyway, I started being active in Western Washington area service. And it was because she brought me to this district meeting, lured me with candy and shrinky dinks. And then she split for some reason, I forget. But there I am, like barely sober, handwriting notes because I didn't have a computer, but volunteered to be the registrar. And then all of a sudden the DCM bails, and like literally I'm like the DCM like the next year. So I went from playing with shrinky dinks to being the DCM. And then after that, like I got involved in, the area, and I became the cooperation with professional community person, which is, how I kind of got plugged in and how I met Mike, and, being around intergroup or area service. I don't remember, but Mike was always there, and always awesome. And so when like one sort of leg of the AA sort of, pyramid or whatever you want to call it was not as strong in my life, this other area of AA service was really strong. And so I had a new sponsor who was Gail, who was really doing a lot of stuff in service. And so I would go with them to like international, or, like up to Canada or to Irvine, to California, to do like whatever conference or whatever, we would do stuff. So, I tailed around with this crew for a while, and that was really awesome. And then I kind of like thought, oh, well, I can also do AA close to home. And I do happen to live really close to intergroup. And it's crazy that I've been sober all these years and I've never done service at intergroup when I could walk there. So then I sort of walked in here because there was some drama between there was drama down here, if you can imagine. And I walked in thinking, oh, I know the people on both sides of this drama situation. I can just go say hello, find out what's going on, and clear this up. Well, so then I got a service position at intergroup, and here I was doing service here for a while. And anyway, so there's always been another like layer of Alcoholics Anonymous for me, available to me as an alcoholic, and it's never let me down. And the people in these rooms have been like honestly, like really the closest thing to a higher power that I have. All of you generically together make up a higher power, because I know better than to have one person be my higher power. But collectively, I've seen some things happen. I remember like doing some area, thing where there's, I don't know how many people go to those, like hundreds, like 500, 1,500, I don't know. And the whole room, I mean, I've seen magic happen at area level, like where, you know, there's discussion. I know what the solution is. It's obvious. We're all talking about it. There's a few kooks in the corner that don't agree, that are talking a lot, but it's obvious the answer, right? And then one person gets up to the microphone, one of these kooks, and they say something, and it is crystal clear. And the whole room gets it. And then it changes the course. And you're like, well, that kook said that, right? So like we all have something to contribute. And it's in Alcoholics Anonymous that I see like that I've seen like the magic. One time when I was the district person, I had this particularly, my district was this really like the uptight Seattle district. I won't name names, but they were really uptight and they like to talk about money. And I had a couple of these really like um, royal personalities, like a couple of guys that really like to be like to know, like they were on opposite sides of discussion. And anyway, it whatever. But there were some situations where I just remember this one guy was talking, and he was so like speaking so passionately about something to me that seemed really minuscule. And I said, like probably what I would have wanted to say, the old me would have said, like, who cares? This is stupid, right? But like the AA me said, like the slightly better me said, wow, you really care a lot about this issue. And he looked at me and he said, like, what did he say? It was so powerful. He said, like, I forget his exact words, but basically it was like, this is the most important thing in my life. And this is the first time, he didn't say it like this, but basically I realized this was the first time this guy had a voice, and he had sobriety, and it was incredibly important to him. So I learned to just like, pipe down, right? Shut up. Like there's people, there's the God is in these rooms speaking through you guys. And I just was so grateful for being able to witness that. How am I doing for time? I feel like I'm blathering on. Okay. So anyway, so that's all sort of like, sort of early sobriety and my service time. And then since then, I haven't, after I left Intergroup, as was mentioned, I haven't been doing much. I've mostly just been going to my home group, and I haven't really been active with a sponsor. I have a person whose name I'm allowed to write down on a piece of paper, but I haven't been as actively calling her, and I haven't had people asking me to sponsor them. So it's funny because I've been feeling like it's time to get replugged in, and like recently, and my sponsor that I could never call because her schedule was really the opposite of mine, just retired and made that clear to me. So I started calling her, and then two people, this is the second meeting. This one I didn't remember, but I did remember the other meeting I was asked to share earlier or later last month or whatever. So it's like I just noticed, like, hey Donna, you're kind of getting like a little sort of on the periphery. It's time to plug back in, because really this is where like the core of like the quality part of my life. So now I don't have I don't obsess about drinking. I don't have some of the you know early sobriety hardships, but I still have an alcoholic brain, and I still can get in a kerfuffle about stuff, and I can still be quite sure that I'm right. And when I'm living that way, I'm living not as joyfully, and I'm not as able to um, contribute as I am when I'm, more like listening and open. And so I finally called that sponsor, and she's really fun. Also, I guess, also a teacher of young kids. I seem to have a theme. I just realized I have a theme. Um, so she, suggested meditation, and so I said I would. I'd give it a shot. And so, and then I went camping. So I've been trying to do a little bit of that with two people in my proximity. But now that I'm here telling you guys, I'll probably be working on that more seriously tomorrow. And I don't know what else really to say, but I am super grateful for my sobriety, and I really appreciate you guys coming out on a Saturday night in this warm, flickering, ballasted back room to hang out with me and my hero.
Awesome.